Did I think that we were already going to get a 5-star rom-com when Anyone But You is still riding out its sleeper hit success? No, but you won't hear me complaining about that, because that means the rom-com revival is officially here. And you're giving me a spooky rom-com? I have a black cat, so you know I was seated. Hi, I'm Lady Genevieve, and on my channel I like to talk about entertainment media. Today I will be reviewing Lisa Frankenstein, which I have been waiting for weeks to get to talk about. Focus Features was kind enough to let me watch a press screener, and I wore that thing out. I watched this film as many times as I could because of how much I loved it. I love a good rom-com, and this one is perfectly in season for both Valentine's Day and Halloween.
I talked to him. I wish I was with you.
It gave me romance, it made me laugh, it was full of iconic fashion looks, the soundtrack was doing everything for me, and the general horror influences and vibes were immaculate. I am happy to share that this is going to be my first 5-star rating of 2024. At first I was going to do a 4.5 because I grade on a curve for new releases on Letterboxd. I do that so that I can keep my thoughts organized for a year's worth of releases so that when we reach the end of the calendar year, I don't find myself confused about which films I would like to pull out when making a top 10 video of that year's films. I thought that maybe I should give a bit of wiggle room for other films to impress me more since it was only January when I was watching this, but who am I kidding? I'm throwing the denial away. I had far too much fun with Lisa Frankenstein to give it anything but 5 stars. The rom-com girlies, we are truly being fed. Cut Zelda Williams a blank check, because if this is the type of artistry she wants to offer us, I'm up, I'm already at the cinema, I live here now. A bit of an introduction to Lisa Frankenstein before we start getting into the various categories of feedback. Lisa Frankenstein is a film written by Diablo Cody, who is best known for films like Juno and Jennifer's Body. It's directed by Zelda Williams, who is best known for being Robin Williams' daughter, until now, that is. Now, when I think of Zelda Williams, I am thinking of Lisa Frankenstein because she fully snapped when making this. The film stars Kathryn Newton as Lisa Swallows, our hilarious protagonist, and Cole Sprouse as the creature, aka the leading man who is down bad for her. The film's synopsis reads as follows. In 1989, a misunderstood teenage goth girl named Lisa Swallows reanimates a handsome corpse from the Victorian era during a lightning storm and starts to rebuild him into the man of her dreams by using a broken tanning machine in her garage. After going through a playfully horrific transformation, the romantic duo embark on a murderous journey to find true love, happiness, and a few missing body parts along the way. Other characters that complete the ensemble are Taffy, Lisa's stepsister, Janet, Lisa's stepmother, and Dale, Lisa's father. I'm not going to give too many spoilers, definitely not going to talk about the big ones since the film is not out yet at the time of me making and publishing this review, but if you don't want to hear anything else and you want to circle back after you've seen the film, I will see you then. Now, for the rest of you who still want to hear more of my feedback, more of my thoughts about this film, let's get into things. In the next life they'll remember me. The first aspect of the film that I want to discuss is the romance. It should go without saying that Lisa Frankenstein is a love story, because it's a rom-com after all. The creature is from the past. He lived and died during a time period when out-of-control sideburns were the norm, so there is a double period piece element, because he's from 200 years ago, and then the film is set in the 1980s, so already that adds a fun little flavor to the dynamic and storytelling as well as their relationship. But another thing about the creature is that he cannot speak, so there's this incredible quality to the buildup of this romance. The creature is unable to tell her how he feels. He can grunt and groan, things like that, but for the most part he has to just emote in his face and show how he feels through his actions, and this makes for some good food for the romance fans. We are being fed. If you've seen the trailer, you will know what I'm about to say. It's not a spoiler. The creature does violence at times.
I can't do that. Not until we bury the body.
I'm a James Cameron fan, so you know that a man doing righteous violence to save the woman he's in love with, that's a love language I'm very familiar with. Kyle Reese traveled through time to save Sarah Connor, and why did he do that? Because he was in love with her. How did he keep her safe once he got to the 1980s? Violence.
Screw the end cap on. Very gently.
Daddy?
Lisa Frankenstein, you really did all of this just for me, and I so appreciate that. The creature being nonverbal is very period piece coded, as in Regency romance. Back in ye olden days, these buttoned up white people, they're not allowed to talk about their feelings like that because it wouldn't be proper. They can be part of colonial empires, but being open with their feelings, no, that would be crossing the line. So he has to just look at her longingly. I love some good old yearning. I really do. If you make me wait too long and then the show gets canceled, then I might have to fight. But I found the solution to that problem. I don't watch television anymore. Films only. Don't be giving me some unresolved love story. Lisa Frankenstein, that is a contained, complete love story. You have a complete arc for their relationship. I know that there are some people who aren't a big fan of Cole Sprouse. I know this because I've seen the tweets, and that's fine, but you don't have to like him to appreciate his work in this film. He is silent, and don't you just love it when a man knows how to shush?
Oh my God, I'm gonna hang myself by the janimals if you don't stop talking.
And that's also great because Kathryn Newton, she gets to play her whole arc of coming of age, of dealing with these bigger themes of loss and grief, and the creature, he gets to just be there to love and support her. There's this one part that I found so sweet. It got me really emotional. I won't give the full context because of spoilers, but something happens. It's a big incident in the story, and he just goes over to her and he hugs her and he rubs her back. This movie is out here feeding me the cutest romance content, and I'm not supposed to cheer and scream like sports fans do when their team wins a match or a game. I don't know sports, but I'm assuming that analogy tracks.
Fine, a nickel for every time I got in a fist fight during a chick flick.
Lisa Frankenstein is a horror comedy, and as far as comedy goes, I laughed so much watching this. I was given my press screener and I rewatched it multiple times, and yet I would still laugh at things even though I already knew what was going to happen. One of the great things about the film's comedy is how much variety there is in the types of comedy. I previously mentioned how Cole Sprouse's character, the creature, he doesn't speak. He just grunts and groans. There are so many sounds he makes, and so many of them made me laugh.
That's really weird, Lisa.
He also gets a lot of physical comedy because he can't say any jokes, so they have to give him things to do that are funny instead. Kathryn Newton, on the other hand, as Lisa Swallows, there are a lot of things she says that are funny. There's a lot of humor in the script for her to play, and other characters like Taffy, her stepsister, also get their moments to comedically shine as well. Being that the film has a supernatural element to it, the story gets to play with that fantastical premise and use it for humor. There are these outlandish situations and occurrences you wouldn't be able to milk for comedy in a film dominated by naturalism.
On the mission. Taffy says it's a waste of time to try and fix up ways. Better just accept a guy's flaws.
Being that the film is set in the 1980s, there's also a lot of comedy that comes from that setting. The slang, I personally wouldn't be able to tell you if it's period accurate or not since I was not alive in the 1980s, but some of the slang or general vocabulary and references pertinent to that time period made me laugh. There's also a satirical flair given how referential the film is towards teenage angst and stories about teenage angst. It does enough, though, to give empathy and heart to Lisa as protagonist and what she's going through, but also have fun with how absurd it is the way that she's treated by the people around her. It's not a spoiler to say that there's a certain amount of violence since it's either shown or hinted at or discussed outright in the film's trailer, but I really like the horror for the film. It really feels like this love letter to the horror classics, especially with a title like Lisa Frankenstein. Frankenstein is, of course, one of those classics that built the horror genre. You go back to the very beginning of the film medium, and a lot of the first big horror icons were part of those universal monster stories. You had Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, the Mummy, the Invisible Man, all of those. Given the premise of Frankenstein, it's only natural that there's a certain amount of body horror and this morbid gothic fixation on death in general. Even so, I think this film is far more accessible of a horror film to people who don't partake as often in the genre. When you add in the comedy and the romance, it lifts the heaviness that a lot of people can struggle with when they're unaccustomed to watching horror. In general, though, I love how referential Lisa Frankenstein is. Zelda Williams is so particular with her references that clearly shape who Lisa Swallows is and Lisa Frankenstein as an overall work of art. You see Lisa watching George A. Romero's Day of the Dead. There are poster references to horror classics like Bride of Frankenstein, The Mummy, Creature from the Black Lagoon, and also repeated references to Georges Méliès's A Trip to the Moon. Another thing that I feel like I need to explain, because it's a joke that I don't know how many people will get, but I really want them to get the joke because it's funny. A long time ago, there was an Austrian filmmaker named G.W. Pabst, long gone now, but he got his start back in the 1920s when films were still silent. You don't need to be an expert on his filmography, but if you didn't already know that he existed, I am telling you now so you can get the joke when he's mentioned.
Really hope this goth phase ends soon.
Being that this is a film set in the 1980s, Lisa Frankenstein fully indulges in that time period for its soundtrack, and it really made the film come alive in a big way. I felt so immersed in the decade because of the soundtrack. Sometimes the soundtrack is used for the fun recreation of this pop cultural atmosphere and aesthetic of the 1980s, and other times it's used for really sweet and emotional storytelling. Also, one thing I have to praise is the fact that they got the millennial icon JoJo to do a cover of an 80s song. As soon as the first note was sung, I knew immediately that that was Miss Leave Get Out JoJo. Miss Too Little Too Late JoJo. And I am dying to know if they told her beforehand where her song was going to be used in the film and what is happening when her beautiful voice is singing, because let's just say it's a whole lot of a whole lot. Overall, I really love this film. I would love to say more about it, but since I'm posting this review before the film is released, I don't want to reveal too much. One other note I want to say about Lisa Frankenstein is that Liza Soberano, who plays Taffy, there is a point in this film where she gets to do some real horror acting, and I read in a print interview that she did that she's a fan of the horror genre and wants to get to act in more horror projects. I will tell you right now that Hollywood needs to cast her to play a final girl in a straight-up horror film, because she can do it. And I know she can because she proved that she could in Lisa Frankenstein. Those are my thoughts on Lisa Frankenstein. Thank you all for watching. Stick around on my channel for more thoughts on romantic fiction and other entertainment media. My next video should probably be another Bridgerton video, unless something springs up in the meanwhile to take me on a detour towards that instead. Bye.